part 2 of looking at the research for a pre-recorded birth chart reading. This is a Leo Ascendant. And in part 1, we had a chance to just look at the lay of the land here. And we were able to put in the Sun as the planet that owns Leo and therefore the first house. We talked about how the Sun was exalted, it's young and it's awake, and that it's got a lot of strength in Shambhala, and with overall a rating of A+. And we talked about that it had a lot of synergy, that its textbook consistently living as your true self, although it was written for the Leo classroom, is probably going to be taught really well here in Aries. Because this was in Aries, then we had a chance to look at the planet Mars, and we saw that Mars is owning Unit 4 and Unit 9, that it has perhaps got the textbooks, The Courage to be Still and Pioneer Your Purpose. Actually, I was thinking about The Courage to be Still, and I think that I had another idea for this title, that it might also be the courage to protect one's inner peace, because the fourth house, Unit 4, is all about our inner peace. And in having Mars owning that, having Mars being the professor of that, maybe is going to give a little bit more than just be still. Maybe it's more about protecting one's inner peace. And we talked about, because this is being taught in the Leo classroom, it might be a little bit more forcefully guiding our inner peace, maybe than it was originally written here in the receptive space of Scorpio. And pioneering your purpose was suited very well to the Leo classroom, but perhaps it was also a little bit more intense. Still recapping, if we think about what these classrooms actually are on Earth campus, always imagine Aries classroom as big outdoor training and experimentation venue where you can rock climb and you can weightlift. There's probably a metallurgy department where you can smelt metal and build weapons or engineer any kind of tools or equipment that's going to improve our ability to do things. The Aries classroom, very action focused. In contrast, the Leo classroom is, I think, the center stage of the Earth campus, where students can really learn to express themselves, to be the center of attention, to share their true self with Earth. And in Scorpio, this kind of combination, an escape room where we need to use all of our problem solving, spy, private detective kind of energy to get out of an escape room. But also it's the Earth campus deep sea exploration, that the great unknown. Apparently we know more about outer space than we know about the depths of our own ocean. And that is what Scorpio is. So we see these teachers have written these textbooks for different venues and playing to the strengths of those venues. And then we see that they're teaching them then from somewhere else. And we saw that the venue of Aries is well maintained by Earth campus. It's got 3 points of prosperity, 3 points of annihilation. That classroom is doing well. The center stage performance area classroom is doing even better. It's got 4 points of prosperity, only 1 of annihilation. Whereas the underwater research center and the escape room is perhaps a little bit more challenged in terms of Earth campus, maybe doesn't have as many resources. This was our recap. And I realized that one of the things we maybe didn't talk about so much was how this might show up in the person's life. Being as we've got the first in the ninth and the ninth in the first, let's talk about some of the ways that might show up. It's such a positive, this first unit being taught in the ninth house by a teacher who's extremely happy up there. Some of the things that we might find is that this person is ethical, good-natured, has a deep understanding of things, hopefully benefits from education or enjoys learning about educational matters, as the ninth house is all about higher education. This person might even work in education. This is going to make a very honest person with an inspired life, probably a charitable person, a virtuous person. These are 2 dharmic houses being mixed together, the first and the ninth. And let's look at it from the other direction as well, because we have Mars, the ninth, in the first, perhaps able to start new ventures, a philosophical and ethical person, intent on one's own dharma and guided from within, trusts their inner self, interested in justice and can be broad-minded and have skills in teaching. Can also give a person an interest in enriching culture and enriching teaching. These are very beautiful placements, as we would expect. And then just to wrap up our review from part 1, we should also look at what it's like when you have the teacher of Unit 4 in the first classroom. Mars is also teaching Unit 4. This can give a person an emotional poise. Having said that, these are both fire planets and fire signs. There's an emotional poise, but there might be an intensity to that. Being constantly involved in educational pursuits would be another thing that we would see when the teacher of the 4th unit is in the first classroom. And this is because it plays really beautifully into this chart, because the Unit 4 is all about early education or basic education, and the 9 unit is all about higher education. This person has both the teacher of early education and the teacher of higher education in the first house. It can make someone good at gardening and working with plants, a warm-hearted and caring individual. Having the teacher of the 4th unit in the first unit classroom can really make a person feel warm and inviting to others as well. Here is our wrap-up of part 1. Now we have a chance to have a look at part 2. We're going to keep going, see how far we get before interruptions come along. But this is what it is to research a chart, is that it takes time to get to know what's going on in the chart, and it really is worth spending that time to understand the architecture and the various relationships. Now that we've had a look here at the 4th and the 9th, the next place that I am called to look is here in the 4th house. We have a node, Rahu. This brings us to a really important part of any chart in Vedic astrology, especially this chart. This chart, actually, the person has asked one question, and I think that question is evolving into a different question. But interestingly, I think both of the questions are going to relate to these nodes, and that can be the case in people's charts. Right down here, I am going to put in our ghost professor, which we have 2 little ghost icons over here. And we have Ketu, and on the other end, we have Rahu. And these ghost professors are created by the relationship of the sun, the moon, and the earth. In this chart, they're super important for loads of reasons. One is we've already seen that one of the luminaries is really important. It's the sun. It's the ascendant lord. Here we find the ghost professors created in part by the sun. We know that the nodes are going to be really important. But then as we just go have a look at Ketu, we can see that the moon is there as well. Now the second luminary is also really closely tied to these ghost professors. And we could say that Ketu is the indication in the chart of previous experience or expertise, and Rahu is going to mark future experience. And in Vedic astrology, these 2 ghost professors are seen as pan-lifetime. They are not really looking to resolve their area of influence in just this one birth chart that we have here. They are looking beyond that, and they're indicating a journey that this consciousness is evolving through. Ketu might mark potentially things that we've already perfected and experienced, and Rahu are things that the universe or consciousness would like us to learn more about. Often what that means in Vedic astrology is that wherever Ketu is, there might be a sense of disappointment, because in previous lifetimes, we've already perfected this area. We have this soul memory, perhaps, of really dominating this area of life. And no matter what we do this lifetime, it never quite seems to match up to what intuitively we remember that we got so much satisfaction from. And contrast to that, Rahu is a fascination, perhaps almost obsessive, with something new that we're really not prepared for, that we're potentially not very good at. But no matter what, our consciousness or our awareness keeps being drawn to exploring that area of the chart. These 2, Rahu and Ketu, kind of need to be understood as a continuum or as an energy that's flowing through the chart. We're going to talk about them both together today. And we've got Rahu in the 4th and Ketu in the 10th. And Rahu is in Scorpio and Ketu is in Taurus. Let's have a look at what those continuums might be about. If I just put in the sign energy, we've got from Taurus to Scorpio, and we've got from the 10th house to the 4th house, or from unit 10 to unit 4. This is telling us that Ghost Professor Ketu might have quite high expectations of what can be achieved, the satisfaction that's available from work, whereas life itself might not be feeling quite so fulfilling about work. And this can lead to an area of disappointment. And it's very interesting because this person's ascendant lord is in the 9th house. The person's going to want to do with their life something really purposeful, because the teacher of the first house is in unit 9, all about meaning and purpose. And then right next door, we have Ketu giving us this sense of dissatisfaction about our work. There might be a sense of disappointment that my work is not meaningful enough. Now, this is not objective, right? This is subjective. The outside world might look at this person and think that the work that they do is really meaningful and full of integrity, changing the world, But inside the person, they may feel, we don't know, we're just outlining the territory here. They may feel that they could do more or that they should do more, something more meaningful, something more purposeful. But ideally, what Ketu is doing here is ensuring that we do not become obsessed with work as our defining area of karma, because it is in the 10th, unit 10, all about our career and status. And Ketu is trying with all of us in the chart to make sure we don't get all of our needs met, because really our awareness, our consciousness is growing in the direction of the 4th. Really, in this lifetime, awareness is asking us to understand something about inner peace, something about our inner peace and sanctuary, something about contentment and that nourishment from within. You know, that person who can be happy packing grocery bags or could be happy being the CEO of a major corporation. It's someone that what they do outside of the house, that is the 10th, because remember the 10th would be the top of the sky if we look at the time that this person was born. It's the most visible thing. That's why it's related to status. And Rahu is interesting us, or trying to draw our interest in who would we be if we found happiness just in the present moment, just in existence, not doing anything, not changing anything, changing the world, nothing like that, just existing, just knowing our existence in and of itself is enough. That present moment is where our happiness is. This is what the ghost professors are doing here in the axis related to the units they're teaching. But let's also see which classrooms they're using. We've got Taurus and Scorpio. Now, what do we know about the Taurus classroom? And what do we know about Scorpio? We were already talking about Scorpio classroom as that deep investigation. It's a water sign. It's feminine. And it is for exploring the deep unknown. Rahu, the ghost professor, is drawing us into that receptive world of mystery, of intuition, and of inner demons. Scorpio, the classroom, has a lot of resources to help us have the courage to find out who we truly are. And this is what Rahu, the ghost professor, is trying to help. And this is that song of, I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. You can imagine that. Someone who has an expertise in that external world, top of the sky, got a Leo Ascendant. But in this lifetime, Rahu is drawing the person towards their inner mysteries and fighting the battles to know who I truly am. And that is contrasted with Taurus, which is an earth sign. It's also feminine. It's all about nurturing. It's owned by Venus. In the layout of Earth Campus, I think of this as being the hobby farm pantry, where all of the students' needs are met and they can be nourished, they can be nurtured, they can be replenished by slowly and deeply relaxing into Mother Earth, as this is an earth sign. Here we are seeing someone with perhaps a history in previous lifetimes of being very grounded, very supported. And in this lifetime, Rahu is asking them to come out and explore the great mysteries of the self. We don't know how this shows up. We haven't finished researching the chart. We don't know this person at all. But perhaps we can say that Ketu, where the person has come from, this very stable earth sign of Taurus owned by Venus, has perhaps, one of the ways it could show up would be giving the person a very grounded sense, fixed sense, remember this is a fixed sign, of how to gather resources and be nurtured. There's a very safe paradigm that's been outlined, perhaps for this person, around resourcing and nourishing the self. Maybe also a dependence on others, in that Taurus is always providing. This Ketu here could be indicating a lot of expertise and good karma around being resourced. However, Rahu is here to pull this person into doing something crazy and maybe go look to get their resources in quite an unusual or unstable, undefined kind of way, because they're being drawn out of fixed earth into fixed water, something mysterious, something evolving, moving and changing in the way that water does, that earth doesn't. Because this axis of Scorpio and Taurus can speak to us a lot about safety, trust, and resources, in that Taurus is the ultimate Mother Earth kind of space where all nurturing is taken care of. And Scorpio is the ultimate, you're on your own in the dark, solving problems for which there's absolutely no textbook. and no paradigm. You have to discover it. And no one else can get through Scorpio, just you. Everybody's Scorpio is unique. This conversation that we've had about resources, trust, is also now happening on the career, the 10th house, away from perhaps what would be considered a very conventional approach to career into a evolving, mysterious career where the path is being revealed as the person goes through the experience themselves. This might be some of what's happening. Now, how do we know if this experience, how it's feeling for the person? Do we have any indication about that? One of the things that we could look at is how are the owners of these signs doing? And we know that Rahu is in Mars's classroom. We can say that we think probably, although this Rahu journey, the ghost professor, is taking this person into some uncharted waters, into the depths of these uncharted waters, discovering their own path, finding their own resources in an unconventional way, maybe a little bit intensely, that this problem has to be solved by this person themselves. And it might look as if they're not rejecting support from their family of origin, but from the family of origin's perspective, it might look, why does this person make it difficult for themselves? Even though, having said that, they have a great chart. I'm sure that it's not too difficult, but it might seem that from the family's perspective. But I think it's going well because Mars is very happy there in Leo. And this is a good sign. This is a good sign that the Rahu journey is going well. Now, what about the dissatisfaction with nurturing and support and with a grounded career? Let's have a look. Ketu is in Taurus, which is a sign owned by Venus. We want to go and understand what is happening with Venus. And Venus is over here in Pisces. Venus is here and it owns, I'll just put that in pink, it owns the 10th house. It is the teacher for Unit 10. And let's put this here in the diagram. Unit 10 is going to be taught by Professor Venus in her capacity, because this is the feminine sign that she owns. And the textbook that she might be teaching, the textbook that she wrote for this classroom might be something materializing value through work, because this is written for Taurus, which we know is a fixed sign classroom. Things move a little bit slower, but they build on each other. It's got that real density of an earth sign, maybe the most dense earth sign at Earth's campus. And the 10th is where we work and we contribute, steadily materializing value through work or through contribution. And to understand what is going on for Venus, let's have a look at the Shakbala, or the powers that this professor has. Venus is one of our pragmatic professors on the faculty. And in this chart, she is exalted, just the sun. She's in her absolute favorite classroom on campus. And she is very old, but she is completely awake or alert. And let's have a look at her position in the sky to try to understand her position on campus, to try to understand how she's placed. In terms of closeness to the sun, Venus and Mercury never get very far away from the sun. We are never going to see Venus on the other side from the sun. In some ways, here, at least a whole sign away, and sun is towards the middle of Aries. There's about 40 degrees between them, which is some distance. In terms of confidence to undertake her own autonomy, she has plus 24 out of 60. It's about halfway. She's a little low in confidence to take action. But let's see if she's getting any support there. And we know that she is getting support from having Mercury with her. These two are great friends on the faculty. The only problem is that Mercury is even closer to the sun than Venus is. Mercury is not really able to give much support as far as confidence goes. And then the challenge is that, unfortunately, Venus is sharing the classroom with Saturn. Now, Venus and Saturn are mutual friends with each other. That is great. But any professor that shares a room with Saturn tends to find that there's a little bit of doom and gloom when you're around Saturn. It's all about Saturn's teaching style is about taking things away, teaching resilience, teaching energy efficiency, teaching the value of time by saying no and taking things away. And this makes it hard for any professor that shares the same room as Professor Saturn. While they're both friends, in terms of confidence, Saturn is taking away some energy here. In some ways, we could say it takes away 60 out of 60 because they're in the same room with each other. But We can also look at it based on how close Saturn is to the sun and whether he's got good habits of confidence. And we know that he's getting way too close to the sun. Saturn himself doesn't have good habits around being confident. He's spreading that doom and gloom to the other teachers he's sharing the room with. We can see that Venus is in a complex situation here because it's doing really well in Pisces classroom. This is where it thrives because Venus lets us know our inner value. It's the planet that we somatically feel our inner value. In Pisces, that is guiding us to the highest fulfillment because Pisces, if it was a classroom on Earth's campus, is a retreat space. It's a Shangri-La, or it's a summer festival, hippie festival, where everybody is experiencing love and is interconnected, maybe even having some of those spacey psychedelic kind of experiences. And Venus excels in this environment full of love where we're all interconnected with each other. It's great. But it is also with this professor who's saying no and who is taking things away. And Venus, that here in expansive Pisces classroom should be feeling complete safety and openness and trust, is in some ways also experiencing the fear of loss through Saturn, even though they're friends with each other. The person may also understand why that's important, that life is temporary and that life's opportunities and relationships are fleeting. But this can have the person questioning their own value and maybe being in relationships where that value of balance is a little bit out of balance. And it could be affecting the person's confidence and ability to act. Now, whenever we're researching a chart, we're always looking for those confluences where we're seeing the same messages. And here we see that some of these messages about Taurus and Scorpio, they're around my value and whether I deserve nurturing in Taurus or whether I need to go through things on my own, work things out the hard way, because that's the only way to get through Scorpio. That's not a bad thing. It's just the way Scorpio is. We see here also this with Venus in Pisces with Saturn. We also see this question of value. Does the person feel that they value themselves and that they deserve, or what do they feel that they deserve? This is a theme that is being echoed between the nodes and also Venus being with Saturn. But let's keep going and have a look at what else is happening for Saturn, because although it's maybe a little low in confidence to act, we're expecting it's going to be high in Ucha Bala, in its inner stamina, and in fact it is 53. That is beautifully high. Inside, the person does know their true value. Inside, this person does know their true value, even if outside sometimes things are taken away and it seems hard. It seems maybe they're not being treated with value. Inside themselves, this chart is saying they do have a good sense of inner value. And in terms of support for that, they can't get much support from their friend Mercury because Mercury is actually at its lowest point here. It doesn't get from Mercury. And Saturn is going to it can't get any support from Mercury because it's actually at its lowest points here. Once again, Saturn is going to be the dominant influence and it's going to maybe take away as much as 49. And then finally, is this professor anywhere near their microphone and lectern? Let's see if students are going to be able to respond to this professor. And we see that it is 26 out of 60, 6 and 60, because the microphone for Venus is here near the fourth cusp. We find that Venus is actually some way away from the fourth cusp. Mercury doesn't really provide any support here, but Saturn is not really providing any problems because it's quite close. It would be getting its microphone here in the seventh cusp. In terms of responsiveness, about half the time the students are going to be able to hear this teacher. We see that Venus is maybe not doing as well as the Sun and Mars, but we cannot discount that it is in its exaltation sign. I think that this is probably going to be a very wise professor that this person has, who can really see the nuance of life and value and of our own mortality. I am going to I'm going to bump this up to actually the C plus B kind of Venus that we would expect. Wow, it should be flying because it's in its exaltation sign, and that really is a great gift. It is with two friends. That is also a great gift. It's just that Saturn is a tough teacher to share a classroom with. Let's just have a little look about, and I think that this is something is really complex about Vedic astrology and about life, that we can look at this chart and think, wow, this person has the Sun exalted, the Moon exalted, Venus exalted, and has a beautiful exchange of the first and the ninth. And this is really true. These are all really great architectures to have in the charts. Anybody would be happy to put their hand up for these. And at the same time, then we're beginning to find some difficulty here in this 8th house, or in this unit 8 where Professor Venus is, that brings these layers of complexity, that life is not always one thing or another thing. This is a very blessed and lucky life, and it has its real experiences of suffering and loss and the opportunities to transform. And we see some very beautiful things. We have, for example, the sun and the moon in their exaltation signs. This is a beautiful yoga. And we also see Jupiter, and we also see that the moon is exalted in the 10th. We have these beautiful yogas in the chart for wealth, for luck. But then we can also see that there are other things going on. We've got Jupiter ruling the 8th, which is a place of change and transformation and all about trust. We've got a lot of this energy around loss, around fear, deprivation from Saturn in the 8th, that all of us are experiencing complex versions of luck and ease and grace. And this chart has a lot of placements for grace and power, but it also has what might be experienced as unlucky as well. And we're beginning to understand this as we drop into understanding Professor Venus right here. And that's why I put her as C+/D, when you might be expecting that she would just get an A or A+ for being in her exaltation sign. Now let's have a little look at this. We're talking about the 10th, steadily materializing value through contribution. How is that classroom going? We're going to put in our prosperity and annihilation here. Prosperity, annihilation. And let's just go through these one by one. Is the 10th house conjunct or Rashi aspected by a benefic? We're very lucky. We do have the moon is benefic, but we've got Ketu as well. It's 1 and 1 far. And what about Rashi aspects? We've got nothing from Cancer, nothing from Libra, nothing from Capricorn. Okay. Is the house lord with a benefic planet? I think in this case, we cannot say that Mercury is a benefic planet because it's with Saturn and it's squeezed in between Saturn and the Sun. We're going to say that the house lord is with a malefic Mercury and a malefic Saturn. We've got 3 there. Is the house lord young or in the prime of their life? No, in fact, they're very old. This is going to be strike number 4 for annihilation here. Is the lord in the 10th house? No. But is this professor with a challenging professor? We have, yes, Saturn is ruling the 6th and Mercury is ruling the 11th. That's 2 points for that. We're up to 5 plus 1. Now we're up to 6. And is the Lord aspecting? No, she's not. This is another point for annihilation and not defeated in planetary war. But I have to say is Jugrat. We've got 2 points of prosperity and we're up to 7 for annihilation. We are seeing that the teacher of the 10th who wants to use this textbook, steadily materializing value through contribution, is actually having quite some challenge teaching that because they're over here in the 8th with these the teachers who are teaching difficult units. One of them's teaching enemies and obstacles. The other one is teaching aspirations and chasing of recognition. This textbook, a steadily materializing value through work or through contribution, is going to need to be really adapted here for use in Pisces. It was designed for an earth sign, a very heavy earth sign, actually, a sign that is a fixed earth sign. The person wants to really steadily build. The textbook wants to teach how to steadily build firm material contribution. And yet they're teaching in a classroom that is all about that hippie, trippy, spacey kind of energy. It's a water sign. Everything's evolving all the time. Everything's interconnected. There really are no boundaries between one thing and another thing. Whereas in Taurus, lots of boundaries, lots of firmness. For this person to be able to steadily materialize their value through work is going to be quite hard here in Pisces because it is such an expansive space and it's such a non-material space. This person may be feeling some dissatisfaction with their career, even though they've got such beautiful support for a purposeful career. I'm sure that what they do is really meaningful, but inside of themselves, they might feel doesn't materialize, might feel disappointed about that. Although I think they're going to be able to put it into a spiritual context. This book is definitely going to need to be adapted. It's become less material and more spacey and evolving. They might question their success because it's not that Taurus mud brick kind of success. But we also know that Professor Venus is teaching this other Unit 3 all about our skills, our hobbies, and our peers. This is the masculine expression of Venus, Professor Venus. The textbook was written by Venus, but from the he-him perspective. And it's going to be taught in Libra classroom. Libra classroom is all about trade and exchange. It's about our value, we've already mentioned, and how valuable we feel allows us to be fair in the trades that we have with other people. Venus is also teaching Unit 3 about skills and our peers. And Libra is all about trade and the way that we can exchange value with each other. For people attending Earth Campus through Leo College, being able to be skillful is a great thing that they can trade. I'm sure that this person has a lot of skills that they're able to trade. And the textbook might be something turning skills into commodity. And this can be lighthearted and fun, hobbies that we enjoy, things that we're interested in, passionate about. How can they become valuable for us and for others? And we want to know, how is this unit supported by Earth Campus in this case? Let's have a look once again at our prosperity and annihilation. We need to go with, is the house with a benefic or a malefic or Rashi aspect? We are getting a Rashi aspect here from Mars. We are getting a nothing from Aquarius classroom. And we are getting a Rashi aspect from Moon and Ketu. Moon, we know it was benefic, Mars and Ketu are malefic. Now, the house lord we already know is doing well because it's Jagrat, but it's very old. And it's with 2 challenging professors, and they are teaching 2 challenging subjects. And Venus is not aspecting the house. In this case, the skills we are finding is maybe 2 and 8. Again, a little challenging here on the skills textbook, because the teacher up here is in a very evolving and expansive, undefined kind. Skills might be constantly moving and changing, and maybe it's hard to lock them down and turn them really into commodities. Just we said for the Unit 10 textbook, this might be less material, but in some ways providing lots of ideas and lots of options. I can see how it might be a very expansive toolkit of skills. Now, let's have a look at how that might show up for the person, because we have the 3rd and the 4th in the 8th. Okay, we have the professor who is teaching Unit 3 and Unit 10 is in this 8th house, or this Unit 8, and it's in the Pisces classroom. What are some of the things that we might see with that setup? We have this Unit 3 all about turning skills into commodities in the 8th house of change and transformation. I think that this can give us an excellent exposure to loads of skills and loads of different hobbies. But at the same time, we might find that it encourages us to change our mind often, perhaps because Unit 3 can be where we have a lot of ideas, and the 8th can be constantly changing, because give us worries and anxieties, maybe give us that feeling of never quite being satisfied or coming to complete conclusions. It could also, on an energetic level, the 8th house can be quite an energetic space, perhaps be a little too open to other people's energies, maybe. And we also have the 10th, the teacher of Unit 10 in the Unit 8 classroom. This might give a lot of opportunities to change our career, might give us an interest in psychology or understanding what's beneath the surface, but doing that through our skills, and perhaps even doing that as part of work, being in some kind of intuitive or investigative or psychoanalyst kind of role. Definitely going to have skills in understanding people, could be skills in human resources, the opportunity to manage other people's money or work with people towards the end of their life. It could even give us secret work, the Unit 10 of what we do in our career, and the 8th house being a bit secretive and hidden. But it could indicate that we can find it hard to find work fulfilling, because the 8th is always changing and transforming things. No matter what we do with work, it always feels like we need to transform it. And this is echoed by K2 also being in the 10th house. I'm just pointing that out because of that synergy between those two. We might sabotage our own success in some ways, but we might follow our intuition with work too. And we could experience sudden changes in our workplace, as the 8th is also related to sudden changes. We have just gone and had a look at how Professor Venus is doing, and noticing that she would like to be teaching these textbooks that help us materialize stability and wealth, and that she's actually in a classroom that is very expansive and water side, very changeable classroom. This person may not have the kind of career stability that they might have expected, or that the culture might expect of them. And we looked at Venus just to come back to examine these ghost professors that we can see a real theme evolving around work and the dissatisfaction with work, because we have Ketu in the 10th house of fame and status. And Ketu's job is to make sure that we don't stay in that karmic area where we have been in previous lifetimes. We're seeing potentially some themes here around dissatisfaction with work and a move from some kind of history in stable wealth values, stable values around nourishment, and that in this lifetime, Rahu is encouraging us to take the road less traveled and really deeply examine and transform our relationship with the self. We have a really interesting architecture here, just we did with Sun and Mars. We were having them in that dharmic trinal relationship with each other, and it was echoing all of that, doing meaningful, purposeful things, a really righteous approach to living. Now we see some similar architecture here. We have the 8th sign with a node in it. Scorpio is the natural 8th classroom on Earth campus. We have the Lord that is involved with the other node is in the 8th classroom, and it's tying in our work into this changeable and traveling one's own path through the deep, dark waters of Scorpio or Pisces, much lighter, expansive waters of Pisces, but traveling your own path that maybe no one else can see, and maybe even you can't see. When we're walking a path through the water, you can't see it because as soon as you move forward, the path behind you closes and the path in front of you still hasn't opened up yet. We're seeing a resonant energy theme here around work, that the person might be walking their own path and that it would be unclear to others and maybe even unclear to this person. Okay, that ends part 2 of this research into the birth chart. And I'm really looking forward to finding out more about the birth chart the next time we get a chance to look at this Leo college birth chart. Okay, bye for now.